So in evaluating heavy mechs, we were just exploring lights. We've been checking out mediums. What is that criteria for heavy? Now we've got some tonnage. Now we've got some bite. We've got some battle value. We've got some C-bills to kind of bring in some interesting themes. And of course, my response is I want everything. I want speed. I want armor. I want big guns. I want specialization. But even with that tonnage level, we hit the ceiling. We hit that ceiling. We need to make some decisions of what type of mechs that we want to play. Now, I find jumping in with heavy mechs, because we have that raw tonnage, we have a lot to work with. This is where you see a very, very dynamic split of specialized mechs, like the longbow. We're going to take this idea of LRMs, really kind of maximize it out and in theory, optimize the system for that, or kind of really brawler type mechs, the Warhammer. Now, that's not to say you can't have specialization in mediums and lights, but that specialization becomes harder and lacks a lot of the things that make that specialization powerful. Just as a quick example, for those of you new to Battletech, specialization with the longbow, we have that 2 LRM-20s, we've got the 2 LRM-5s. We could always use more ammo, but we've got enough ammo to be pretty aggressive firing. A light mech, we've got the Valkyrie. That's an LRM-10 on a light mech that moves very, very fast, but it doesn't have redundancy, meaning it doesn't have multiple packs. It's only a 10. Ammo is okay. It's not limited, but it's ammo on a light mech. These aren't criticisms because you're packing that in under a light mech. Now, as we jump to heavy, we have a lot. So generally speaking, I'm going to look at generalized mechs, what I'm kind of looking for, or that checklist that I will use to start to build a lance. The first, of course, is speed. Now, I know there's some heavy mechs that are relatively fast. I want to have enough speed where it can keep up with the mediums, or maybe make a really, if I'm not turning and I'm going to flat outright run and I don't have any terrain in the way, elevations, that I can move a little bit faster than normal. I do find speed is important as part of a lance, unless it's a heavy, heavy assault lance. I don't want to be the slowest mech, and I don't want to be slower than normal, because that's going to pull back my other lance mates or working as a team. And as a heavy mech, I want to be in the action. I want to be up there. So I want to make sure I'm not penalized with speed. If I can go faster, great. We'll see. Armor, I want to have a decent amount of protection. We're in a heavy mech. Certainly, certain heavies are heavier than others. They have more armor than others. But from that perspective, I at least want a good baseline, because I'm going to be expected to be up there, to be brawling. I want to take a couple of hits. And if I take a couple of hits on the way in, I'm going to do my best not to have that happen. But if I do, then I want to make sure that I'm still kind of fighting from that aspect. Now let's jump to long range. I want to have redundancy as best I can in these areas. Redundancy in Battletech is where you have 2 or more or multiples of the same or equal weapon platforms. The classic example, 2 PPCs. Now, whether I can fire them and heat, those issues aside, by having 2, if I fire both of those at a target, whatever the numbers are, I have a better chance because I'm firing 2 weapons and they deal equal damage and equal range. So I'd like to have that tandem. Now, we see heavies, we see assaults that have one primary type weapon that's long range. We see that, and they're not specialized. But I prefer in my heavies, 2 classic examples would be something like the Warhammer or the Marauder. You have those dual PPCs. Now, Inner Sphere Tech, the PPCs are kind of the balance in terms of damage and in terms of range. There's longer range weapons. There's harder hitting weapons like the Autocannon 20. But not having ammo, pushing that out there, PPCs are the one of the highest levels, highest echelon of tech for Inner Sphere. You've got to manage that heat. You do. Marauder and Warhammer's examples, we've got some heat challenges. But on that tech sheet, on that tech manual, you've got the 2 PPCs. I then want to have weapons that when I get close, so on the way in, I'm going to be firing off those 2 PPCs. Maybe 1, maybe 2. Maybe I've got autocannons I'm firing off. When I get close, I want medium lasers. I want medium lasers. Large lasers are kind of in that different area. I want medium lasers because they have the balance of range, damage, and heat they're one of the most efficient weapons, inner sphere, in the game. Again, Marauder and Warhammer, just as two examples. They've also got redundancy, the ability to fire those. And then ideally, I would like something for a little bit of close-in type work. I'd like machine guns. I'd like flamers. I'd like some dedicated anti-infantry, but we could do the same with small lasers or other type of weapons, because chances are, being a heavy, I'm going to have to be going into fortified areas. I'm going to have to be going into certain areas. What this means is I'm going to be exposed and expected to engage a variety of targets: infantry, light vehicles, mechs. I don't want to get swarmed by infantry. Or as I take a lot of damage, the last thing I want is to be critted by some infantry, be cast down to the ranks of the dispossessed from that perspective. So that is my checklist for a non-specialized heavy mech. I will say, if we jump into specialized mechs, I want to be all in. I want to be all in. I want to take all that battle value. And again, I use the longbow as an example, though you could, archer's kind of borderline there. I want to be all in. So I've got everything piled in to those missiles. I am sacrificing armor, not really sacrificing speed, but I'm sacrificing a lot of armor, for heavy and assault type mechs, as an example of pushing that out and utilizing. I mean, longbow is actually into the assault category, but we get that idea, pushing that tonnage. So your checklist for a heavy, or your checklist for an assault. And leading into the assaults, I'll just say with this, now you have so much tonnage to play with where the same criteria holds, but speed becomes less important, because I can slow down the rest of the lance. If I'm attaching mediums and lights to an assault type mech, I'm going to lead with the assault mech. I'm going to use that to break through. And then the mediums and the lights are going to kind of swarm and do what they have to do from that perspective. So speed's always important, but I find for assaults a little bit less.